On this Friday night, a heartbreaking homecoming in Nova Scotia. Residents get a look at what's left of their neighborhood.
My house has been, well, it's gone.
The province's unprecedented firefight, with the weather finally offering some relief. Flight disruptions.
I can check in, but I can't check out.
Fallout from Air Canada's latest technical troubles and concern about the busy travel season ahead. Plus, ER emergency, how staffing struggles are hitting hospitals across the country. And e-bike boom and bust.
Holy mackerel. So what'll happen now?
How BC's rebate program proved too popular for its own good.
Global National with Farah Nasser. Reporting tonight, Sophie Louie.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. We begin tonight again in Nova Scotia, the province grappling with forest fires unlike any it has seen before. More international help is on the way. 6 water bombers are headed to Nova Scotia this weekend from Montana to support crews that have been working hard to battle the flames. And there was some good news today in the form of rain, which gave firefighters a bit of relief.
I've never been so happy to see rain as I was this morning, and I'm sure many people across the region feel the same way. It was great. It's going to help slow down fire spread today, but it's not enough.
Well, luckily, a lot more rain is in the forecast for the weekend, but for some people, it sadly didn't come soon enough. Earlier today, some residents were allowed to go see the damage up close. That's where we begin our coverage tonight with Mike Armstrong. Mike.
Sophie, this roadblock is as far as evacuees have been allowed to go since being forced out of their homes on Sunday. Today, they were given the chance to at least briefly visit their neighborhood. Some jumped at the chance. For others, it was still too painful. The invitation went out Thursday night for a bus tour, but with a hitch. During the visit, no one would be allowed off.
My house is gone. Everything's gone.
Jody Stewart decided not to take the bus and to wait to go home. He said he'd rather go back when he can actually stop and with family.
A drive-by wouldn't really cut what I need to do there. I need the, not closure, I don't know what it's called, but I need to actually physically go and do my thing.
5 buses went to different parts of the evacuation zone, depending on where people lived. The tour lasted about an hour. Buses stopped in front of people's homes.
The house is gone, the shed's gone, everything's gone. Like on our property, there's nothing left. It's completely gone.
Jason and Mary Young knew what to expect. They'd seen some pictures.
Oh, the shed is gone.
They shot this video during the tour. One thing they appreciated was being with neighbors.
I mean, we were all there just hugging each other, and we would stop and just people would stare at their properties and just break down, but we would be there for each other and giving words of comfort to each other because we understand what we're going through.
It's getting in those needles.
Global News has obtained video shot this week as homes burned down. The images were taken by someone who stayed inside the evacuation zone, defying the mandatory order to leave. The video was sent to Global unsolicited. It shows the ferociousness of the fire and the devastation it left behind. It also shows how the ground continues to smoke with hot spots even after the main fire has moved on. That is exactly what firefighters are working on, trying to prevent a phenomenon called holdover.
Those small little embers hide, and just, when you think everything's fine, they can come back to the surface and you can get a reignition.
There's been enough progress on the Tantalin fire that more of the evacuation zone is being opened up, but it's still only about 50% contained. Now, there have also been other fires in the region. Thursday was, according to the deputy fire chief, the busiest day in memory. It stretched the department so thin it put about 20 recruits into service, people who haven't actually graduated.
That is unusual. That is not our preference, trust me.
Those recruits may be used again before they officially finish their training. Their graduation ceremony may have to be delayed. The department is just too busy. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Upper Tantalin, Nova Scotia.
And as of this morning, there were 15 active fires burning across Nova Scotia, so that weekend rain can't come soon enough. A steady stream of helicopters and bombers tackling the largest fire the province has ever seen in Shelburne County in southern Nova Scotia. The fire creating a huge plume of smoke across the region. More than 40 volunteer and municipal firefighters are working on it from the air and on the ground. And Quebec's Fire Protection Agency is warning that its ability to stay on top of the fires in that province is becoming more and more difficult. This blaze in Sept-Îles on Quebec's North Shore is one of 80 burning out of control. It has resulted in an evacuation order affecting as many as 5,000 people. Canada's airlines have been trying to reassure travelers that last summer's flight and baggage chaos won't happen again this year. But a technical malfunction at Air Canada on Thursday felt all too familiar.
There were so many cancellations and so many delays that I thought for sure that we were going to get delayed today.
Air Canada says the IT issue has now been resolved, but not before 500 flights at 9 of Canada's busiest airports were delayed or cancelled. As Caryn Lieberman reports, some are wondering if a post-pandemic surge in demand will mean more disruptions ahead.
We were en route and we got a garbled message on the phone saying my flight was cancelled.
Too late to turn around, this traveler will wait out the delay at the airport like many others.
This is my first flight in like 6 months, so yeah, no issue. Actually, we're delayed an hour today, so welcome back, right?
While air travel may be returning to pre-pandemic levels, a variety of issues from staffing to technology has been casting a dark cloud on the aviation industry.
We are almost at 2019 numbers. There are a lot of people traveling. And in Canada specifically, we have the looming WestJet strike. The Air Canada pilots might be going on strike. So there are a lot of people that are concerned on how are they actually going to get off the ground.
On Thursday, many didn't. For the second time in a week, Air Canada experienced a system-wide technical issue. The result?
We were supposed to leave today, but our flight, as of now, has been delayed an hour.
We tried to call the 800 number. They said they can't help us. We have to show up to the airport.
It is their systems, their planes, their responsibility.
This air passenger rights advocate says it's not the passenger's responsibility to chase the airline for information.
The law says that the airline has to communicate to the passengers proactively. They have to make announcements. They have to send emails, and they have to provide alternate transportation.
By Friday, Air Canada noted its communicator system, now stabilized, was functioning normally, but that rollover effects may result in delays.
They told me to go and get my own hotel, phone in the morning.
This Air Canada traveler is frustrated and wanted to send a message.
I hope the CEO is listening, sir. I work in your industry. I do medicals on your pilots. And you need to come down here and straighten this out.
On this traveler's mind, recouping costs for canceled flights.
The thing I don't like is that you have to fight for the compensation. And it should be cut and dry. If this happens, then you get refunded.
The federal government recently tabled new rules meant to make it harder for airlines to deny compensation for travelers experiencing lost baggage, delays, and cancellations. Sophie.
Caryn Lieberman reporting for us tonight. Caryn, thank you. Hospitals are also bracing for a busy summer. As more people enjoy activities in the great outdoors, that can lead to injury and trips to the emergency department. But this year, a warning. Some of those ERs may not be open. Katherine Ward explains why.
In Minden, Ontario, there is no longer an emergency room.
It means thousands of Ontarians will have to travel farther and farther.
It closed June 1st. Hours have been cut in Niagara, where officials say 2 urgent care centers will close overnight service. The president and CEO says this time the decision is permanent.
Our own physician leaders have told us that a difficult summer lies ahead.
Doctors say despite sounding the alarm, staffing problems persist.
There's many times, like last night on the night shift, when I go back to the nursing station about an urgent request and there is no nurse. I can't find a nurse.
It's a story on repeat across Canada. In New Brunswick, Alberta, and BC, there's not enough staff to heal the healthcare systems, forcing services to shut down. Canadian Medical Association President Dr. Alika Lafontaine hopes new federal investments will help relieve pressure. But there are still concerns about how to better manage resources.
We should not treat this summer as if we've moved past the crisis. We are still in the middle of it, but we're in a better position to address it, but we have yet to do that.
Doctors are particularly worried about what will happen in rural communities this summer.
A lot of rural volumes go up because people from the cities are heading to rural areas for vacation.
The Ontario government announced it would renew funding to help rural and northern hospitals and bolster ER staffing. But where the doors are already closed, residents are worried.
People are going to die.
Canadians will be waiting longer this summer. The crush on emergency services has outstripped the ability of the system to cope with it.
Katherine Ward, Global News, Toronto.
In Quebec, a new law aimed at protecting the French language has just come into effect. Bill 96 is an update to the province's French language charter, and it makes it harder to access services in English. The government calls it a vital tool to stop the decline of Quebec's only official language. But opponents say the province is going too far. Dan Spector reports.
Wade Wilson is a resident of Longueuil, Quebec, a suburb just south of Montreal. On Thursday, when he came to this splash pad with his grandchildren, it wasn't working.
So my wife reached out to 311 to just find out exactly what was happening. And they basically told her, which still shocks me today, that she didn't have the right to be communicated to in English.
Bill 96 is designed to stop the decline of the French language, especially in Montreal. Most civil servants must now communicate with citizens in French. People can still get health care in English, but here's what Montreal's 311 line sounds like when you choose English.
We will be pleased to provide service in English if you attest in good faith that you are covered by one of the following exceptions. If you are a person declared eligible to receive English education, if you are an Indigenous person, if you are a recently arrived...
You are only allowed to access English services if you grew up going to English school and in a few other cases, though it's only based on the honor system.
We want to ask people to bring a card or some things like that.
The Montreal suburb of Côte Saint-Luc is 60% Anglophone. Their new information line message is raising some eyebrows.
If you'd like service in English, press 2. Oh, and by the way, you don't need to show us your grade 3 report card, and you don't have to pinky promise anything. This is the city of Côte Saint-Luc, and that's how we roll.
I think it's a good way to show the absurdity of this law.
Quebec says people made fun of the original French charter, Bill 101, back in the 70s, too.
It's a new step, and I think we should be proud of that.
Under Bill 96, immigrants must be able to communicate with the government in French within 6 months of their arrival.
I would suggest to some of the people who have implemented this law to try it themselves, to try learning another language in 6 months, enough to be able to function totally in that language.
But French classes aren't always immediately available, and the website for the government's new French language instruction agency is only available in French.
I have asked my teams to make it easier to reach the website.
Bill 96 also imposes new regulations on businesses, schools, and more. It's already facing multiple legal challenges. Dan Spector, Global News, Montreal.
Russia continues a massive attack on Kyiv. Coming up, the U.S. pledges more military support for Ukraine. Plus, infant formula can still be hard to find, the lengths some parents are going to find a supply. A frantic effort to save lives in India tonight after 2 trains collided in the eastern state of Odisha. It appears one train jumped the track and smashed into another. There are reports at least 120 people are dead, and rescuers are scrambling tonight to find survivors. Well, the U.S. Secretary of State is pledging more international military support for Ukraine, even as Russia continues a massive missile and drone attack on Kyiv. The Ukrainian capital was hit with more than 2 hours of aerial bombardment overnight as Ukrainian forces prepare for a counteroffensive in secret locations. Jennifer Johnson has the latest.
In the dark of night, Russia fired at least 36 missiles and drone strikes in Kyiv, marking the deadliest week in Ukraine's capital in months. Thousands of people are sheltering in the city's subway stations, trying to survive. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is at NATO meetings overseas, pledging long-term funding to help Ukraine fight back.
America and our allies and partners are helping meet Ukraine's needs on the current battlefield
while developing a force that can deter and defend against aggression for years to come.
Ukraine is now holding large-scale military training exercises, preparing for a counteroffensive against Russia in the air and on the ground. This pilot saying we need more missiles and helicopters, but we've been preparing for this since 2014. This week, the U.S. is sending additional munitions for Patriot air defense systems, while on the ground, U.S. troops and soldiers from other NATO countries are training Ukraine's military in a secret location.
The Kremlin often claimed it had the second strongest military in the world, and many believed it. Today, many see Russia's military as the second strongest in Ukraine.
Meanwhile, NATO leaders are moving ahead with plans for Ukraine to join NATO, something Russian President Vladimir Putin strongly opposes, knowing it will greatly strengthen the country he wants to control.
All allies agree that Ukraine will become a member of the alliance, and all allies agree that it is for the NATO allies and Ukraine to decide when the time is right. It's not for Moscow to decide.
But Kyiv remains under attack. A criminal investigation has now been launched after missile fragments hit outside a locked Kyiv health center, used as a shelter, killing 3 people. Officials fear another night of shelling as Ukraine prepares to launch a massive operation to strike back. Jennifer Johnson, Global News, Washington.
Ahead on Global National, the struggle to find formula, how shortages persist across the country, and the temporary solutions that could help. Well, there's some relief for families on the hunt for baby formula with Health Canada approval for a product from France. Parents across the country have faced shortages for more than a year. And while it's hoped the French formula will be of some help, some say it won't be enough. Marnie Blunt reports.
Renee Blunderfield has her hands full caring for her 10-month-old daughter. And the simple act of feeding her baby is a source of stress.
It's been very stressful and absolutely ridiculous driving around from location to location to find some food for your infant.
A shortage of baby formula making food scarce.
The shelves are bare, there's like next to nothing, so what are we supposed to do?
Blunderfield has numerous relatives trying to help her find the formula she needs, including her father, who has driven to more than 15 different cities and towns.
Well, it's annoying when you know you have a grandchild who is in need of specific formula, and there's no idea of when it's going to become available.
Parents have been grappling with shortages since February of last year, when Abbott, a major producer of formula, shut down its Michigan plant after 4 babies suffered bacterial infections from consuming powdered formula. 2 died. Recently, another recall of Gerber baby formula south of the border made the supply situation even more dire.
Supplies are quite tight, so Americans are desperate to supply their own market, and we rely on the American market to get our own baby formula in Canada. So as you can imagine, exporters aren't necessarily prioritizing the Canadian market.
Last week, Health Canada gave interim approval to import a baby formula from France in a matter of weeks. But Blunderfield says she feels it won't be enough, leaving her and many other parents on a stressful search for food for their babies.
We need to feed our children, so what are we supposed to do? Wait until shipment comes and then the shelves go bare and then repeat all over again?
Health Canada says it is working with manufacturers to increase amount and types of product, which included establishing an interim policy to bring in formula from other countries that have similar standards to Canada. That policy has been extended until the end of this year. Sophie?
Marnie Blunt in Winnipeg for us tonight. Thanks, Marnie. BC's e-bike rebate program proves so popular, it sells out in mere hours. What happens next? Well, the popularity of e-bikes is exploding worldwide. The power-assisted bicycles making it easier and faster to get around with the added benefit of being environmentally friendly. And some Canadian jurisdictions are fueling the demand, offering cashback incentive programs. BC was the latest to do so this week with a startling result. Kamal Karamali explains.
Electric bikes are on a roll.
and there's no signs of sales slowing down.
It's been quite busy. Bikes out the door, bikes coming in.
Thank you very much.
Thursday, BC introduced a cash incentive, allocating $6 million to fund e-bike rebates. Applicants can get anywhere from $350 to $1,400 back, depending on their income. The website crashed from the high demand.
Perhaps we need to work on our technology infrastructure a little bit.
The entire fund appears to have been used up. By the end of its first day on Thursday, the BC e-bike rebate program had over 5,500 applicants. Laura Yopis is one of hundreds now on a wait list.
Obviously, I've already been thinking about it, but definitely the announcement kind of like made me pull the trigger.
Several customers putting bikes on hold until applicants' rebates come through, but others gave up once the website crashed, critical of the province for failing to meet the demand.
It was clear that it was overloaded or
Frustrating?
something. Oh yeah, for sure.
But it's not just BC. E-bikes soaring in popularity across Canada, the rebate programs are giving it a big boost. In 2020, Edmonton backpedaled on the rebate after it surged in popularity. BC is the latest province to hop on the e-bike rebate program. Yukon offers back as much as $750, Alberta, Nova Scotia, and PEI offering $500. But the largest province and its largest city have no plans.
Part of it is a matter of money. The municipalities work on limited budgets.
Former Toronto City Councillor Mike Layton brought forward a motion in 2021, but a change in government put the brakes on the idea.
It passed, fortunately. It didn't come back in that term of council, unfortunately, and I don't believe it's come back since.
Many cities instead have an e-bike share program, but some believe it's just a matter of time until those who aren't on board with rebates will switch gears. Kamal Karamali, Global News, North Vancouver, BC.
And that's Global National for this Friday night. I'm Sophie Louis. Tonight's Your Canada is Summerside, Prince Edward Island. We love seeing Your Canada, so please email your photos to viewers@globalnational.com. Thanks for watching. Farah Nasser will be back at the anchor desk tomorrow. Have a great night.